What's going on, everybody? Brezzy43 here. We are approaching Players Cup 4 really quickly. This is probably going to be the last video I upload before the games. I came off of a busy weekend with family because of the holiday, and I'm also going to be having another busy weekend. Unfortunately, this coming weekend, I do have to work as well as some other commitments. So I'm hoping to squeeze in my games at some bizarre times here. So I'll try to record them when I play them. I don't know 100% what team I'm going to play yet either. So I wanted to give you all an update real quick on some things that I think are pretty decent. That could also be really solid teams for you to build off of or keep in mind when you're building your teams. So first and foremost, I wanted to start off with some resources. I'm gonna pull up a couple of videos quick, or one video specifically quick. I missed the train on this, but on this video, but James Eeks is a Pokemon player who does a lot of streaming. It's also getting really warm weather-wise here. Sorry, squirrel moment. I am sweating. I'm in the Midwest and we just finished winter and it is getting to be hot, and today is like 80 degrees and it's our first like really warm day since winter. So it feels hotter than it actually is, of course, but I am very warm today. So first and foremost, I'm going to jump over to this YouTube page. James Eeks is the guy I wanted to give a shout out to quick. He's a Twitch streamer, streams most days afternoon time from Central Time. He's in the West Coast, but he put up a video, beat them all, prepare for Players Cup 4. I did check out the video myself. It's a long one, but he does talk about all the really common cores, as well as how to beat them and what tools you should have on your team to help you against them. So I would highly recommend checking out that video as well. The second tool that I wanted to share, as most of you have heard from or would have known from my other videos, I do like to spend some time on the RVGC page on Reddit. There is it's a really good resource to get players kind of acquainted with each other, and it's a nice community to bounce ideas off of each other and talk to each other. It's not a complete dumpster fire like Reddit usually is, but it's got some cool resources occasionally. I'd highly recommend checking it out. And somebody did post a data visualization post on the page to kind of share some resources for fighting these teams. So they kind of laid out everything here. Lapdog, common teammates, Colossal, common teammates, Hot Dog, common teammates, etc. And it goes on and on to, I don't know how to skip it in here. You kind of have to do this, I guess. Tornogre, Traditional Rain, etc. This person did put in a bunch of work to kind of lay out all of this stuff for everybody. This is a resource that I would highly recommend. It basically complements what Eeks was saying and saves me some breath talking about some of this as well. Kind of showcasing some of the common partners for these teams, what you should expect, their game plans, whether they're hyper offensive, defensive, or balanced, and then some up-and-comer picks that could potentially be solid Pokemon to use in the metagame. Some of these you've heard me talk about. I'm a big fan of Centiskorch against some of the meta, big fan of Volcarona. I think Garchomp and Hydreigon are fantastic as well. So definitely highly recommend checking this out. So that's the resources that I would recommend. Now let's talk about some teams. So the last video, I left you all with a few teams that I had been considering. So I had been utilizing these two teams. This was my most recent Lapdog team that was using a bulkization, Lumberry or Goggles, Hydreigon, Thundurus with AV, Safety Goggles, Incin, Focus Sash, Amoonguss, and Lapras with Life Orb. I also left you all with the Colossal variation of this team. I've played a bunch of games on ladder, and I think one of the main things that this team lacks, specifically, the Lapras teams in general, I don't think Lapras is necessarily a bad Pokemon right now. With Kyogre dipping down in usage in the metagame and Sun being really popular, Lapras definitely is not as good as it was before, but the game plan of Lapras plus Perish Song Endgame is still a very reasonable. Sorry, I stopped talking for a second to make sure that I wasn't picking up sound outside. Lapras game plan with setting up screens using bulky Pokemon is still a fine game plan. It's very good. Except the Sun matchup makes it tricky, and you have to have other things going on. I think this team needs speed control. You struggle a bit too much against some matchups. You can't just rely on out-bulking your opponent with the team like this and relying on redirection from a Moongus, because it's not gonna get you where you need to go for some of these matchups. You're just gonna get buried by these really powerful attacks and these extra boosts and different things like that. You're just gonna get buried. So one of the considerations that I'm going to be taking with that is implementing speed control, but we'll get to that in a second here. I left you all with a cool variation of Sun Trick Room. This is something that I would probably play. I didn't actually test this out on ladder very much, but I think that this would be a really solid option for a team. I still think that's true today. This team was one that this was Pato's team. I think Grimmsnarl is a fantastic Pokemon right now. I think you either need to have an answer for screens or Grimmsnarl specifically on your team. It's a difficult Pokemon to get around, and screens are so good against some matchups, and Grimmsnarl in general is just a phenomenal Pokemon. I also was running this team. I did some more testing with this team today, actually. It's not quite there. I think if I'm being honest, I think it's either the Grim or the Thunderous that's giving me trouble on this configuration of the team. I'm leaning more towards like switching Thunderous for something else, because I think that Volcarona is phenomenal against some matchups. Grimmsnarl is just a good Pokemon in general. Necrozma Duskmane and Volcarona give you really good options against Zacian. Hydreigon's good against Sun. Mimikyu is just a good Pokemon, but the Thunderous on this team is, I think, what's causing me some issues. It's feeling underwhelming. It's not doing what I want it to do, or what I envisioned it would fill on this role of being able to give Airstream boosts and giving a different tool for this team to operate on, as well as insulating it a little bit more against Pokemon like Incineroar and Landorus. Because you do need to deter Intimidates away from Necrozma and Mimikyu. A potential other option that I think could be interesting, I don't know if it's good or not, but Milotic with competitive could be an interesting Pokemon for this matchup, because it helps deter Intimidate as well, but more importantly, it also gives the team speed control with Icy Wind if you wanted to run Icy Wind. It's a decent switch in for some attacks. It's really bulky. Could run a coil set, something like that. But I don't know for sure. This team would struggle a lot versus Incineroar if I didn't have Thunderous to kind of deter it. So this is still a team that I would recommend if you can find an alternative slot for Thunderous that can fill the role that it's kind of needing to fill, or finding a way to get this harder as a harder Trick Room team, then by all means definitely do it. I think that this is a close. This core was close, and I wish I had more time to kind of get it fleshed out. Okay, so now on to some of the meat of what we're talking about today. This is the first change that I would make to Lapras. If I was going to stick with my Colossal Lapras game plan, I would just switch the Amoonguss to Regieleki. I think Focus Sash Regieleki specifically is quite annoying right now. I think it's a difficult Pokemon for some teams to deal with. It helps you out immensely against some of the tougher matchups where speed control, where they're just faster than your Lapras and you need to be able to control speed somehow. This is a fantastic option for that. The Sash also helps it against the Kyogre matchup, because if the opponent leads Tornadus and goes for Tailwind and tries to nuke it with Water Spout or something, you've got Sash to lean back on, and Lapras is already phenomenal in that matchup as well. So this would be the change that I would make. Otherwise, everything else is the same. The spread that I advocate for, the Assault Vest Incin. This team has a really unique game plan against against opposing Calyrex Shadow, you can actually lead Eleki Ensign, or you can lead, Ensign Zacian, and you can max the Ensign and max strike the Indeedee or whatever the partner Pokemon is for Calyrex to slow it down. And that most of the time, if you lead Indeedee Zacian into your opponent and they lead Whimsicott, for example, they're probably going to switch Whimsicott out so it doesn't get faked out, and they're going to bring in whatever their other Pokemon is. Usually it's Indeedee. So if you read that play and you max strike that slot and you protect Zacian, your opponent goes for Astral Barrage. Obviously, you don't take any damage on Zacian, and Incineroar shakes it off because it's AV and it's a dark type. Now your Zacian's faster than both Pokemon, and you've chipped the Indeedee. So you can Behemoth Blade the Indeedee for the KO, and then you can Max Darkness the Calyrex for the KO. Zacian will die, but you'll take out 2 Pokemon and still have 2 turns, or still have 1 turn left of your max with like Eleki in the back to continue to provide that speed control for you. So this team's got options against that opposing team for sure. This would be the lapdog team that I would run if I can't decide on a team by tomorrow night. I'm just going to register this exact team right here. This is my traditional Lapras. Nothing's really changed with it. I'm still running enough speed for most Ensign sets. AV Ensign, Zacian, Sashaleki, Lumberry Lando for the Sun matchup. The EVs are pretty random on Lumberry Lando. It's just kind of like Jolly 196 outspeeds Calyrex Shadow at +1, and then and then I also have like a good amount of bulk, so it helps me more in the Sun matchups. And then Leftovers Ferrothorn for the like Kyogre matchups, and just as another end game option against some teams where I can lead Lapras. I can go Lapras, Eleki, Zacian, Ferrothorn, for example, against like Kyogre and stuff, and that's a pretty solid lead, or pretty solid game plan. So this would be the lapdog that I would recommend, and what I will end up playing if I can't decide on anything else. The next team that I wanted to talk about is the one that I've been looking at really closely, and that's this one. I think if there was ever a time for Weezing Regigigas to be good again, it's right now. This team can match up very well against some of the top teams, specifically against the Sun teams and against the Rain teams, against the Calyrex teams, against a lot. I should say I played some high level showdown the other day, and 2 days ago, and I faced this exact team of 5 or 6, 5 times by 5 different players before I had switched teams, and I couldn't beat it. I don't know what the sets were, but it's Regieleki, Calyrex, Indeedee, Wims, Cinderace, and Urshifu. Excuse me. This is like the offensive team of the high ladder right now, and it's everywhere. And it's tough to beat because I think the Regieleki Dynamaxes, I think it's a physical Lucky with bounce. My opponent airstreamed me, and I don't know what else it gets that's a flying move. It doesn't, so yeah, it's physical Lucky with bounce and assurance. So it can drop special defense for Calyrex. Indeedee is the typical Indeedee set. Whimsicott, I don't know if this where the sash is on this team. I think this is banded. I think this is AV. And then I think Wims might have the sash, and then Eleki has Life Orb maybe. And then I think this one actually gets the spell tag. I think this is what they do. And then this is like Psychic Seed, maybe. And then this is the sash. Yeah. That sounds about right. So this team plagued my showdown experience. Every time I made it past 1650 and closer to 1700, I'd get beat by this team again, and then like I'd face it always, like I was facing it in upper 1500s and upper 1600s, and it was just everywhere, and it was really tough for my current team to beat. Wheezing Gigas is phenomenal against that team. If positioned properly, Gigas can completely wall the Calyrex, because you can shut off psychic terrain. They're forced to max, and then you can position Zacian accordingly. In the end game, you've got Alecki to control speed. You've got Wheezing and Gigas, which is phenomenal. I'm not sold on Lando. Lando is one Pokemon I'm not 100% like, this is the Pokemon to use. I like it. I think it's a good Airstream option. It's good against Sun. Wheezing Gigas is also good against Sun, which is why I'm saying I'm not so sure I like it. It is a very good switch in, because right now we do have 3 ground weeks on this team. So adding another ground week potentially harms the team a little bit, but I could see Incineroar being okay and just like dealing with the ground weakness and trying to position accordingly. But I think that Wheezing Gigas Zacian Alecki +2 is really, really good. I was exploring this specific team and Lapras, like a light clay Lapras, just because I like Lapras, and it's another alternative mode to bring these 4 Pokemon. But Lapras doesn't really help your bad matchups, right? So Wheezing Gigas, I think, is good against Sun, good against Rain, good against the Solgaleo Bulldoze stuff, because you shut off Clear Body and you can bully it with Gigas. And then it's also pretty good against the hyper offense teams overall, because they're really reliant on some of their abilities. The matchups that Gigas struggles with are the ones that are faster, like the Pokemon that are faster than Gigas, that can offensively pressure it. A really big example is Zacian or like Bandit or Shifu plus a fast Airstream user, because they can just control the speed and just bully the Regigigas, and you can't really do anything about it. You're forced into a defensive position really early. You have to do some like defensive shift pivoting and whatnot, but ultimately it's rough. So Alecki helps out in that matchup, but that's why I'm not super confident in these other 2 Pokemon, because they just don't really help that aspect of the matchup. So I think this team, if I can get this team right, I think I might use this one. I'm running Darkest Lair down Gigas over like Wide Guard or Protect, but I could see one of those being better. I also am running Sash Max Speed Wheezing for Will-O-Wisp stuff. My usualization spread, AV Lando this time, and then Magnet Alecki, because my Sash is on my Wheezing. This Magnet spread is, I think it lives Sacred Sword from most Zacian, with just this little extra 52 defense investment. I think that's why it's there. Maybe it's Behemoth Blade. I don't remember for sure, but Magnet makes sense for this kind of a team. But I like this team. I think this team is sweet. I think it's really good. I just think I need to get these last 2 members right. And I'm not sure what exactly that would entail. I like having I want to find a good switch for Wheezing to like, because the reality is you don't need to leave Gigas in play. You can just switch Wheezing out into something else for 1 turn, reactivate your slow start, which is fine, and then set up from there to come back in the next turn. Sorry, I was looking at that song to figure out what it was. I've never heard it before. But you can switch Wheezing out for 1 turn and then switch it back in. Do whatever you got to do for that. I could see Incin potentially being the correct choice here, but then we would really need to make sure that our last Pokemon really bullies ground types as well, so we're not we have 4 ground weeks and we're not getting screwed over by it. So that, yeah, but Gigas is really good. People are really uncomfortable with their teams underneath underneath Neutralizing Gas. Sorry. Giga Max Strike from Regigigas one-shots the Grimmsnarls running around right now. I think it one-shots the 4 most popular Grimmsnarl sets, because they can't get up Reflect because you shut off Prankster. Also, Zacian I might be pigeonholing myself into choosing Zacian, just because I like the Pokemon. I could see Calyrex Shadow being another restricted Pokemon doesn't doesn't get its ability impacted by neutralizing gas. Obviously, with Zacian, you can do some switching in and out of Wheezing to kind of position your Zacian, but or to get like extra boosts and whatnot. But I think that like Zacian takes advantage of neutralizing gas, but Calyrex Shadow just doesn't get their ability shut off and is not a ground weak. So that's potential. It's also a psychic resist, which is makes it like a reasonable switch in, but I don't know. I don't know which one I would prefer. I really like Zacian against a lot of matchups, but um yeah, I think this team's close. Like I said, I'm a little bit hung up on this team, but I really like Weezing Gigas, and it's really good against a lot of the metagame right now. One last piece was I ran into this team on ladder today, and it looked really interesting. I don't know. I shouldn't put this because I don't know what the sets are, but this was the team, and this team does a lot. I think this is a really, really good team to really good sand team or rain team to kind of alter and come back with, because the original rain teams got bullied out pretty hard by Sun and by Lapras and stuff. Excuse me. I think this team does a lot of really like good things against a lot of the metagame. Talonflame was something that I had kind of forgotten about a little bit because it doesn't get as much love as some of the other, like it doesn't get as many good support moves. But Talonflame with Gale Wings, this guy was running Hurricane. Talonflame gets Hurricane. So you get the 100% accuracy with Kyogre, but you also can run a fire move if you want. But then Talonflame gets Tailwind, obviously. That's why we're running the Pokemon. But then the last move is kind of up to you. If you want to run Sash, you could run something here. You could run Protect if you don't care about the Sash, or you could run like Safety Goggles and then run Taunt. You could also switch Flamethrower out for something else. I know it gets Protect, like I said, it gets Roost, it gets Sub, it gets Will-O-Wisp, it gets Quick Guard, which is pretty cool too. One other Pokemon that I think is a very interesting option right now is it would probably have to take the slot of the Ferrothorn on this team, but it's actually Serena. I've seen Serena on a couple of teams recently, and it actually matches up very, very well against a lot of the metagame because it shuts off all this prankster stuff. Sableye, Grimmsnarl, Whimsicott, all these like prankster Pokemon can't do anything to Serena. I don't know what you would run. You'd probably like... Serena gets some interesting moves. I know it gets Triple Axle, which a lot of people really like, and it doesn't get Grassy Glide. It does get Grassy Glide, which is kind of cool. I think you would run Trop Kick, or you would run... Yeah, probably Trop Kick. But then you could run like a couple of other moves here, and then, obviously Ferrothorn's really good on this team because it gives you an end game to play towards with like that benefits from the rain. A different potential, also like taking advantage of screens. This was a light clay screens, Grimmsnarl with, I think they had Scary Face, but I'm a big advocate of Thunderwave. And then this one would be Spirit Break because it's not... we don't need Sucker Punch. There's no reason to have Sucker Punch, really. I guess you could run, instead of Thunderwave, you could run, like... instead of Sucker Punch, you could run... like Darkest Lariat. Or instead of Thunderwave, you could run Darkest Lariat to help with the Calyrex Shadow matchup a little bit more. But you have Tailwind for that. You've got like Garchomp, which I'm a big advocate for right now against some of these Sun teams. Garchomp's great. You can run it just like Lando, run Lumberry, but you resist you resist everything that Lando resists. You don't get a ground immunity, but you get a ground neutrality from Groudon, and you get a rock resistance. So you still have the same... You actually pick up a fire resistance, though. You pick up a resistance to the Zard. And you actually resist rock rather than be neutral. So you're trading a ground immunity for what Garchomp has to offer. But these stats are really good. I think you still would go Jolly max speed, but you probably don't have to run max attack if you don't want to. Thunderous is a really good partner for this Pokemon, obviously, but because it like you can just freely click Earthquake, and Thunderous doesn't get hurt by it. But Thunderous is like a bit redundant. Like it might be a possibility to like do the same thing as with Thunderous, but with Talonflame. And then you obviously have a bit more of a Talonflame's obviously not as offensive and doesn't do the same thing as Thunderous, but I'm talking about specifically from keeping types from overlapping too much. This could potentially be good. And then yeah, this team had my attention. I jotted the Pokemon down here and I started to look into seeing if I could like build it back up, but I don't know enough about the team. I was thinking that maybe Celesteela could fit on this team somewhere. It does open up like 3 electric weaknesses then, but like if you changed one of these 2 to Celesteela and the other one to like Serena, you fight a lot of what's popular, and then you still have a good end game like leftovers Leech Seed Pokemon. But it's not quite the same Pokemon as Ferrothorn, right? Like Ferrothorn is a really good end game, especially under screens, and like Ferrothorn doesn't care about Regieleki as much at all, really. So that could be one potential like difference, I guess. But we've seen Kyogre, Celesteela in the past, so definitely an option as well. Yeah, I think Grimmsnarl is great right now, but my priorities going into this next tournament is going to be, I would love to get this Regigigas Weezing team to where I want it before the tournament. But if I can't, then before tomorrow, if I can't get it where I want it before tomorrow night, I'm going to just run Lapras because it's the best thing that I can use, that I'm comfortable with playing. That's one of the things that I don't know how much of that overlaps with Pokemon, but I come from a Magic the Gathering background, and you don't always have to play what is considered the meta deck or the meta team. If you can play your current team very, very well and you have a plan for what's popular in the meta game. Before quarantine, I was going to a fair amount of Magic tournaments, and one of the last ones I went to, I played a deck that was a little bit more outdated, similar to Lapras, where it was good previously a few months back, and it had some really good matchups, but it struggled against some other ones, and I had like tech for that in my deck that I had brought. Similarly, if I build Lapras to be good against the matchups it's currently good against, but then have a game plan for what's really popular, then it puts me in a really nice spot. And you can max Lando against the Sun teams and be in a pretty good spot. So that's gonna be it for today. I hope you all enjoyed this video. I will link the video and the resources in the description. And I hope you all enjoyed it. I would love to get this team to where I want it, and maybe even the Kyogre team, but we'll see what happens. So good luck this weekend, everybody. Take it easy, and I will catch you all later.